To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por
We
favor,
invite you, if
manténganse
you dare,
alejados
to
de las
step
puertas.
forward, because in tonight's episode, you will stop in this elevated travel.
Doorless chambers.
Hello and welcome to Miles from Main Street, your Far From Disney podcast. My name is Mikhailo,
And I'm Brian,
and we're here to talk about Disney World,
but especially coping away from Disney.
which we know a lot about being from the Midwest. Here at Miles from Main Street, our preferred travel agency is Magical Vacations by Kimberly. Kimberly is a Disney expert and can handle all of your Disney planning needs. She can also plan Universal and all major cruise lines. Contact Kimberly at magicalvacationsbykimberly@yahoo.com.
And find her on Facebook and Instagram under Magical Vacations by Kimberly.
So today on Miles from Main Street, we're doing a top 10 attractions at Walt Disney World. This is pretty exciting because I love listening to top 10 lists, just top 10 lists for pretty much anything, like stuff like Watch Mojo. People have heard about that before, I'm sure. And really any Disney top 10 list I love listening to. So I'm pretty excited. And I think Brian and I had a lot of fun putting these lists together.
This was a ton of fun. Like, it was easy to make my list of 10, but then I tried to rank them, and it's like, oh man, this, and oh man, that. And yeah, this is a ton of fun. So I hope that everyone listening will kind of join in. I know when I listen to top 10s, I'm always kind of throwing in my 2 cents as I'm listening. So I hope we can get some of you guys to join us on Facebook and let us know what your top 10s are as well.
Definitely, yeah. And if we had fun, you guys will have fun too, putting together a top 10 list. I know for me, it was actually easy for me to get like 15 or 16 and then kind of whittling it down from there. That was the difficult part for me.
Yeah, I tried to just make my list of 10 and then rank them. And so then my wife's like, well, what about this one? It's like, oh man, that one. Okay, so then I'd cross something out, and I was just trying to work with my 10, and then once I had that, I was like, okay, now what's going to be my favorite? It's like kind of picking your favorite child. It doesn't work. It can't happen. But I do have some favorites, and I think I came up with a pretty good list.
Awesome, cool. Well, I'll go first. For my list. We'll go back and forth. I'll give a ride and Brian will give a ride, and we'll put our list together that way. My list, I have got 2 pretty big hitters for me up top that were just kind of obvious for me. And if you've listened to the podcast at all, you'll probably know one of them. The other one I don't really talk too much about, but it's hands down my favorite, and that is Tower of Terror.
Yes, Tower of Terror.
Yeah, there's just something about the theming of Tower of Terror and kind of like the whole idea of Tower of Terror that I just love. It's the ride itself is so innovative of like what they had going on and everything, and just the ride vehicle itself, how it kind of like moves forward and then gets into like a drop zone, and then you drop and everything. And then the fact that the ride is randomized. I remember, I think they added this a while ago now, but it was just something that I never had happen to me. Was I got to the very, very bottom and I thought, oh, the ride's done. And then a picture came up on the screen that wasn't your typical ending of the ride, and then it shot us back up again. And so it's just like,
oh,
yeah,
I've never experienced that.
Right? Yeah. And so it's like little things like that that you're able to experience that are different every time. And it's just kind of like the atmosphere of the whole thing is just so cool. It's kind of, it's as you'll see, it's like my type of ride. Kind of spooky, kind of eerie type things. And so I'm really into that. And it also, I also loved the the Disney original movie that came out alongside of it. That's and note on that, that's not on Disney Plus, and it's actually really hard to find and stream it, unless you've like bought the DVD, which they sell there. So that's a tip for you guys if you're looking for the Tower of Terror Disney Channel movie.
We did find that movie a little while back and shared it with our friend Steve Gutenberg, the I don't know, the 90s actor to end all 90s actors. He was in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was really Kirsten Dunst was in that as well.
Kirsten Dunst, yes.
So, yeah. But I remember like a lot of my Disney as a kid was watching the movies, watching the TV shows and all the different ads that they would put out to get you to come there. And as a kid, I couldn't afford, my mom couldn't afford it for us. So that was what we did. We dreamt about going. And so that movie was huge for us. Like I wanted to go do that ride so badly after seeing that movie. So yeah, I had Tower of Terror as number 7 on my list, and I think you'll see why as I bring up my list. But I still really enjoy that ride. The story, the backstory, the movie that helps with the story. When I first was able to ride it, I did not expect Twilight or the Twilight Zone to be part of the ride. I didn't know that was a part of it at the time. So that was even cooler too, because I had watched a little bit of the Twilight Zone as a kid. So yeah, the great ride. My number 1 though is Big Thunder Mountain Railroad.
Oh.
So I one of my memories of my first trip was it rained our first day we spent in the parks, and I was there with my mom and a friend of hers, and it started raining, and they had already kind of been running around the park by me a lot. And so they said, you go do what you want to do. We're going to go back and take a nap. So I don't know. They might have sat in the lounge or something. I'm not even sure what they did. But anyway, we separated. I went over to Magic Kingdom at that point, and I remember going, I want to hit all the iconic rides that I remember from the TV commercials, and just everything you always see in the videos they put out. So Big Thunder is one of those that's always stuck in my head whenever I think of Disney. But it's an awesome ride to boot, because not only is it a thriller ride, it goes pretty quick. It's exciting, but also the queue has so many details in it. And that's part of what I really enjoy about Disney, is how much detail they put into their rides and the stories they put into their rides, and just being able to go through that queue line and find things, find little nods to the Imagineers that were a part of it. And then, the goat on the ride, you always got to say hi to the goat as you go by. So, yeah, it's just one of my favorites, absolute favorite.
Yeah. And Brian, you've never been to Disneyland, correct? I would have to argue that I would say the Big Thunder Mountain in Disneyland has some pretty cool things, and I would put that over the one in World. So you have to get out there. If you're a Big Thunder Mountain fan, you got to get out there and experience that one. Big Thunder Mountain actually not on my top 10 list. And
How dare you?
I know, yeah. It's not that I'm not a big fan. I think it's because it's right next to another one of my my favorite rides. And so I was always running to that ride before I was running to Big Thunder Mountain. But I mean, yeah, Big Thunder Mountain is such a cool ride, and the queue. I love the queue at Big Thunder Mountain, and that kind of brings up a point with some of our rides, is that a lot of times, like for me, sometimes the queue is better than the ride. Like there are some some places that I won't actually take fast passes for because I want to like walk through the queue and actually enjoy the queue. Um, so that's something that I do sometimes, just because I enjoy those queues so much.
Yeah, we I don't like to wait in lines, but there are a few that I wish we would do that. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, I haven't done that. Peter Pan, I have not gone through the queue line.
Mhm.
Um, so I understand going through a queue line though, and I need to do that on some of these.
Yeah. So speaking of queue lines, this next ride that I'm about to talk about, my number 2 ride, the queue line was updated, and I actually really enjoy, and that is Haunted Mansion, of course.
Of course, Haunted Mansion.
Yes. In the first 2 rides, obviously you're seeing kind of a theme. This is my favorite kinds of rides are scary, spooky rides. Um, but I mean, it's so iconic. The lore behind Haunted Mansion and just like how it was made and how they went through all the processes of putting the 2 ideas together for the ride. I feel like it just goes so well together. And I mean, and this is a ride that is so old. Opened in 1971 with Disney World, and really hasn't changed too terribly much. A lot of the same practical effects are there. Um, and I think that's kind of what I like so much about it is that some of those practical effects are still cool to this day, because they put so much thought into everything that they were doing with this ride. And just the overarching theme of a haunted mansion has always been something that I'm really into. I love haunted houses. I love Halloween, and stuff like that. So it's always been something that I've really been into, and just with the history and with everything around it, it's really kind of like pulled me in. So a lot of the reason that I like this ride actually goes towards the story and the history and everything around it. Um, so it's kind of like the full package for me.
Yeah, Haunted Mansion, like everything you said. I don't know that I can add a whole lot to it. Uh, a lot of my list can be attributed to history and just the connections that are there to Walt. And you hit it on the head. I mean, Walt was a big part of the Haunted Mansion, even though he did not see the opening of it. It was one of his pet projects. So yeah, I had it as number 6, but that's not to say it's a bad ride. So I
And that's
agree.
good. I'm glad that our it would be funny if we went ride by ride and we had the same list.
Right. Um, but I would go back to your thoughts on queue lines, and I'm going to bring up Flight of Passage as my number 2.
Mm.
Um, now I know there's a lot of people that would put that as number 1, and I should probably preface I did not include anything from Toy Story Land. I did not include anything from the planet of Batu either,
Mhm.
because I haven't been there yet. I haven't done anything there yet.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know why I bring that up at this point, but I'm going to throw that out there. Just, I guess, because you're not going to find Rise of the Resistance on my list, and
Mhm.
that's because I just haven't enjoyed it yet. Um, but Flight of Passage, I remember when Avatar was open, when the Pandora world was opening. Um, the a lot of the bloggers and vloggers and podcasters, whatever, they were going through Pandora on preview days and showing off the land. And I remember watching a video of a couple of times of people walking just through the queue line and not even getting to see the ride yet. And seeing the actual Avatar uh, Navi person floating in the water, like, how cool is that, man? And all the little details they have in that lab, and how they've got you go from the mountains outside and into the mountain, and like you've gone into a cave of one of the Navi where they were living. You've got the paintings up on the walls, and then you move into this lab. And I remember when you're transitioning from the lab, or from the cave into the lab, there's a section of grates, like really big grates for venting air. And we're standing there, and they look like they're so old, like they've been there forever. The rust is on them and everything, and you feel it, like you're kind of expecting like it to flake off when you touch it, and then you realize that it's not quite that, but it looks so real that you just buy it automatically. So the way that they're even just able to age something so it looks that like it on day one, that it's however many years old. I mean, just awesome. Um, so then I mean, you get this great big queue line to go through, right? And then you hit the ride, and you're flying on a Banshee, and that just tops the whole thing off. Being able to do that ride, and um, how many times do you walk off there going like, I just flew, I was just flying, you know? Just too cool, just too cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this one up, because this one actually isn't on my top 10 either. And I have a couple reasons. The queue line, amazing. So cool. And to kind of talk about those like early previews and things like that, being from the Midwest and being away from Disney, it's hard for us to kind of go out there as soon as things open. In fact, there are often times where I'll go out and I'll miss rides opening by just like a couple weeks. And so then it's like maybe like 6 months to a year before I get to go back and experience these rides again. So I actually do this thing where, because there's going to be walkthroughs, there's going to be ride videos, I try to limit myself to not see any of those things before I ride rides. And it's really difficult because when these big rides come out, this is all the Disney vloggers want to be talking about and capturing. So I try to make it so that when I go to Disney and I get on this ride, like I haven't seen anything about Rise of the Resistance. I've seen like pictures, because of course my friends take pictures there and it's all on their Snapchats and on their Instagrams. But I haven't seen a full ride through yet of Rise of the Resistance, because it's something that I want to go and experience for the first time by being there. And that's kind of one thing that I try to do to make sure that the magic of riding these new amazing rides is kept for when I'm first there. The one exception is Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. I've actually watched that ride through, and that looks insane. So I'm kind of excited for that. But that's a lot of cool new tech, and a lot of video screens, which I'm into, because that's kind of what I sell. But going back to Flight of Passage, the issue that I have with it, and this is a personal thing, and since these are personal, I was kind of going back and forth whether or not I should add it, because there's so many good things about it, and I really did enjoy it when I was there. But my issue with it is that I still felt a little sick after riding it, and this doesn't happen often with rides. It's only like certain rides. Like I can't ride Star Tours anymore for some reason, just because like I get that same feeling. Um, and so it's kind of like that weird sick feeling that like you kind of feel for like another like 2 to 3 hours after being on that ride. So that was the one thing that I had with it. Literally everything else, it was just so amazing. The being able to like to feel the water, like feel the flashes, and feel the animal that you were riding breathe and stuff like that, just like amazing. But that was the one thing that I had with it, was that it made me feel sick. And that's 100% a personal thing. That's not going to happen with everybody. And maybe it was because I've found that if I ride less intense rides first, then I have no problem. Which actually, this last time I went on Star Tours, I had no problem with Star Tours, and it was because I rode Slinky Dog in the beginning of the day, and Slinky Dog is a less intense ride, but it's still kind of like moving you around. So I think that was my big issue, was I rode it super early in the day, and it kind of made me feel sick. So that's literally the only reason it's not on the list. So speaking of roller coasters that can possibly make you feel sick, my number 3 ride is Expedition Everest. Now this one has a couple different things going on. One, I think it's probably one of the best rides. For a long time, it was the best ride at Animal Kingdom. Now it's definitely getting rivaled by a couple other rides, which is why me and the rest of my family, this is kind of a family ride. We all love this ride. This is why we enjoy this ride so much. Joe Rohde, one of his amazing contributions to Disney. So all of those things make this ride an amazing ride. And it's one of those rides, just got done talking about how I can get sick on motion simulators and stuff like that. This is a ride that is very intense, and I never feel sick on it ever. And it's got a single rider line that usually isn't that bad. Like, I think like we've ridden this ride like 4 or 5 times in a row, and this is on like a summer trip where it's packed. So that's always fun. But again, with this queue line, the queue line at Everest, I think I would probably have to say it's probably the most detailed queue line. I mean, you've got amazing queue lines like Flight of Passage that just have so much cool tech. And I think it rivals Smuggler's Run because that queue line is just insane. But just all of the little tiny details that are in this queue line, all the way down to just like random pictures of the Yeti on the wall and stuff like that. I think is very cool.
Yeah, I also had Yeti. Well, my family calls it the Yeti ride, but I had Expedition Everest as number 3 as well. It's an excellent roller coaster. You go backwards. It has, you feel some of those G-forces on some of those turns. Like, it throws you into that seat at times. And yeah, we've talked about this before too. That queue line, I bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
Like you kind of walk in. Like, I remember, I think I was riding it with only my son at the time. So we're walking through the queue line, and I'm looking at these displays, like the museum type of part of the queue. And I'm looking through the stuff, and I'm like, yeah, okay, Yetis and whatever, yeah, that whole thing that's out there. But like, by the time you leave the museum, I'm going, wait a minute. Like, there is so much stuff in that museum piece that by the time you walk out of it, you start believing that they've got evidence of seeing a Yeti.
And that's what's cool, is that there's like real stuff in there too.
Yes. Yeah, there is. And so when I was in that queue, I'm going, is this really happening? Like, is this real stuff? Like, I don't know. My mind was having trouble differentiating with the real and the made up pieces. So it's always been one of my favorites just for that reason. But then, yeah, I remember riding with my wife and daughter. They were in the front row. They thought they were going right off the track when you get to the top of the mountain and it's broken. Because it doesn't stop until like you're right there. And when you're in that front row, you feel like it's not stopping.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember them kind of going, wait a minute. So
Yeah, very cool ride. And Brian and I had it in the same spot. So that's always very cool.
all right, well, I'm going to take the next one then, since we had the same. Number 4, I've got Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
Mm.
Now, you might say, wait a minute, you just said you haven't been to Batu. How could you have ridden Mickey and Minnie's? Well, I haven't. But I had to include it because it's Mickey Mouse and it's his first ride. And I was so darn excited for this thing to open. And it opened, shortly before COVID changed the world. And even though that's when it hit, I was all over those ride videos. I wanted to see every little piece. I wanted to be spoiled on every bit. I kind of look at it as it's going to be a while before I go. So why not just watch it? So I did. And holy cats. This thing is awesome. The effects they've put into it. I can't wait to see it for real. And they tell you, like, if you're wearing ears when you first get into the train, take them off because there's a part that's really windy. And so it's like, I can't wait to do this ride. I can't believe it's taken this long for Mickey to get his own themed ride at any Disney park. There have been shows, and we could go through that history if you wanted to. But there's never actually been an actual ride. So Mickey and Minnie's just excites the heck out of me. The projection technology that they're using in it looks amazing. I can't wait to go see it myself.
Yeah, and that was a big reason why because I got pretty excited about it too. And seeing some of the pictures of what was going on in that ride made me really want to watch these videos. And I don't know why, but with those types of ride videos, I don't feel as bad watching them because I just feel like I'm getting like a decent grasp of like what's happening. And just everything about one of my favorite parts is they use the puck technology with the ride vehicles, so it's trackless, and
Yeah.
you get into one area and it's supposed to be like a dance, like a Zumba class type thing, and your ride vehicles start like doing like back and forth like dance type things, and then you just start moving around the whole room. It's just some very cool things happening. And I think they definitely did Mickey justice with this kind of ride.
Absolutely. I really think it's done well. Yeah, I can't wait to get there.
So my number 4 ride is Splash Mountain, and it probably won't be Splash Mountain for too much longer. And I have some fond memories. This ride is really more about nostalgia for me. Not that it's like a bad ride, but I mean it's just your typical like flume ride with some pretty cool scenes and everything. But the reason it means so much to me is that when I was younger, my father read us. There was like a picture book of what Splash Mountain is based off of, Song of the South. Um, it wasn't like the actual book, but it was just a cool picture book that we would get read, and then we went to the parks and like actually we were in that picture book in real life. So I always thought that was really cool. And then also, I've said this before, but Splash Mountain is kind of where I realized my brother and my sister were as big of Disney nerds as I am, because they were freaking out about it too. So some really good memories about Splash Mountain, and that's I mean honestly that's why it's so high up on my list.
I typically have not really gone one way or the other with Splash. It's just one of those rides that I felt like I need to get on when I get there. But this last trip around, we took my youngest daughter when she was about 3.5. She hated Splash Mountain. That drop was terrifying to her. And this last trip that we took, being about 6 at the time, she loved it. And that's one of the rides that she just kept talking about when we came home. And she just had a great time on it. So there's some memories around that ride now too, just like you had brought up. So I included that at number 10 because I had to have it on the list. Anything with some good memories, I got to have on there. So you had mentioned whether it'll be Splash Mountain after this. I kind of hope it stays that way, because what does Splash have to do with Song of the South?
Exactly. Yeah.
If I may, the reason it's Splash Mountain is that the movie Splash was coming out at the time, and Michael Eisner wanted to have it be a splash, or they wanted some sort of splash ride to get that synergy working. And they said, well, why don't we just call it Splash Mountain, since you take this big drop and splash down? And that was to satisfy his need for a splash thing.
Yeah. So there's your little history nugget for the podcast.
So I could, if we're going to Tiana and everything, leave it as Splash Mountain. Go for it.
Yeah.
Number 5, I have got Soarin'. So Soarin' Around the World, I never got the opportunity to ride it as California, but I have ridden it a few times as Soarin' Around the World. Putty, being your flight attendant at the beginning, is great. I don't know his real name. He was Putty on the Seinfeld show. So
I was trying
to. But yeah, the last time we rode it, we hit the line kind of weird, and we didn't all fit onto that single onto that one ride. So they told us, why don't you guys hang out, wait for the next one, and we'll get you in a good spot. So they put us top row, section B, right in the middle. So you don't get the bend in the Eiffel Tower. You don't see the curve at all. Oh my goodness. I had ridden that a few times before that, but to sit there and ride it, you don't have dangling feet above you. Like, it was awesome. So if anyone ever has a chance, say, hey, can we wait and get that middle seat, top row? Right now, I don't think they're allowing things like that because of all the regulations they have around allowing people in there. But that was quite the treat that we got. That we weren't expecting. So
yeah, so this is another one, Brian, that I don't have on my top 10 list. If we were doing this list maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, it probably would be on my top 10 list. It's pretty high up there for me, just because it's such a great ride and it's so cool. The queue line is a little stale, but I love when you go through that queue line and you kind of there's like a little game that you can play. And they have these projectors, and you can play this game on your phone. I think it's just like answering questions, like trivia. But yeah, like, very cool ride. Very cool idea with everything. I don't know. It just got, not that it got stale for me, but it just like, there's a couple other ones that have surpassed it. Since it came out. But when it's my mother's favorite ride, I would be remiss if I didn't say that. But it's such a cool ride, but I don't know. There's some other things there that I would put over it. So
to each their own.
yeah.
I think it's top 5. So
well, my number 5 is the Rock and Roller Coaster. This ride the queue line sucks. I mean, if you include the pre-show into the queue line doesn't suck as much. But I've always thought that this queue line is the worst. But the ride itself is just so cool. And I remember when it first came out, and we went and rode it, and it was like Disney's first really like intense roller coaster. And I still think it's one of the more intense roller coasters at Disney, with that the launch start and everything. I remember when I was young, and I don't think I ever opened my eyes when we did the launch start, because I was just holding on for dear life and closing my eyes, and I just couldn't do it. Uh, Now, I mean, I'm still holding on for dear life when I go on that ride, but I'm able to keep my eyes open. um, but just the idea, and this is another, I am really into, not that using IP for rides is bad, but I really enjoy those rides where Disney's kind of made up their own story, and Disney's kind of made up their own theme to things. And this was one of those rides, definitely, where they came up with a story, and then they got Aerosmith. The history behind Aerosmith becoming part of that ride is kind of cool. But just kind of like the whole idea of the ride and the ride itself. This is one of those rides where the queue might kind of suck, but the ride itself is so cool that it just blows everything else out of the water, for me. But and that's also why it's a little bit lower, because the queue is kind of lacking. Um, but the ride itself is just so cool. I just love it.
I did not have this one included on my list, but one of the things that I always find fun about that ride is when you're talking to people about it, there is literally an argument of whether you go upside down or not. And it is Disney's only upside down roller coaster.
Hmm.
And they let you know that as you're walking back there, the car is upside down in that archway. Um, but it's it's always a great conversation to have with people. Yes, it does go upside down, but it's dark. It's dark like Space Mountain, and you you don't know where you are at times. I don't know that I realize that I'm going upside down when I'm in there. So
And a lot of that, I'm pretty sure it's happens is because it happens right away. The inversion is like the first thing you do, and so you do the inversion, and then you kind of go off and you do all your other things. um and Honestly, I when I was young, I never realized that either, because it happens in the dark. It happens like right away, and then you're off doing everything else. So yeah, I when I was younger, I never noticed that you did an inversion.
it's it's a great ride. And the reason I bring up the archway with the upside down car is I was watching a video and they said that their kid realized that the car was upside down. It was like, wait a minute, we go upside down? And the kid's ridden it like 10, 15 times already. So I just think that's a great thing to talk about. And one of those little things that people get into discussions about.
Yeah, right. Very very cool. And it's funny, I've never thought of that. Just one of those Imagineer um details that they put in. That's very cool.
Yeah. So my number 6 was Haunted Mansion,
Mm.
which you've already touched on. So how about you? Where was your number 6?
My number 6 is Pirates of the Caribbean. And this
I
is
love the smell of pirates.
yes. I have, and I don't light it a lot because it actually, after a while, it starts to make your head hurt. But I do have the pirate water. Um, Actually, no, it's not pirate water, because that one's different. It's actually the Splash Mountain water smell, because it's the same for both candle. But I have a candle that smells like what the water is supposed to smell like at Disney. And so yeah, and I just love that smell. I love this ride. Another nostalgia ride for me. Another ride that Walt worked on, and he never saw the Disney World version open. Um, And so yeah, another one of those boat rides that uses a lot of really cool practical technology that still holds up today. But again, a lot of it comes from nostalgia. This was always when I was younger, this was always the first ride my family would go to. We would like run past everything else and then just get straight on to Pirates of the Caribbean. And I'm not really sure why. Um, I don't know if it was because my parents really enjoyed the ride or if us as kids really enjoyed the ride, but that was always like the first ride we went on and the last ride we went on when we were at the parks when I was younger. Um, so that was always cool, and the queue line is very cool for Pirates of the Caribbean. It's a lot better than the queue line at Disneyland because Disneyland is just kind of um, like you've got your facade and then you've got your queue line out front and then you kind of walk through another indoor queue line and then you've got a little bit more theming in there, but then you're there and you're at the boats. Um, so that's cool that they were able to expand the queue line at World and make it a lot more themed. But yeah, it was cool going on the Pirates at Land because Land has a lot of really cool uh, parts to the ride that I thought were really interesting that World doesn't have. So that was cool too.
A lot of people think that Pirates is a opening day attraction at Disney World, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So another historical tidbit for you: it is not an opening day attraction. In fact, people complained
Yeah.
when they got there and said, "Where are the pirates?" And they didn't put them in initially because they thought, "Well, we're really close to the Caribbean. No one here is really going to be that interested in the pirates." So they quickly put it in, which is why it's probably a little different.
Mm-hmm.
May not have all the cool things that they have in California. So I did not have pirates on my list, although I do love pirates. I did not have it on my list. So number 7 was Tower of Terror for me.
Mm-hmm.
May have heard of that ride before, huh?
A little bit. So since we've talked about Tower of Terror already, I'll move on to my number 7 pick. And my number 7 pick is Space Mountain. And this is another one of those rides where the queue line, in my opinion, is really the star. I love that queue line. Honestly, for me, that queue line is the reason it's on my top 10 list. If this ride didn't have the queue line it has, it would be not on this top 10 list. And it's really like they're not doing anything too terribly special with it. Like there's a lot of detail and there's a lot of really cool things going on, but I think it's just like the idea of like they made everything look so futuristic and so space like, all the way down to like the weird warping mirrors that you can look into, and it kind of looks like you're looking into like endless space and stuff like that. It's all very cool. And one of my favorite things, I'm going to talk more about the queue line than the ride. One of my favorite things is they have like weather reports from other planets going on. This is probably something people don't ever really notice, but it's something, me being a big Disney nerd, I've noticed on that queue line. And so they'll talk about weather reports on all the different planets in the solar system, and it's just all really funny to watch that. And so it's just those um, little things in the queue line that I find interesting, and that just kind of like the all around vibe of the whole thing, very futuristic. You literally feel like you're on a space station, and then it's all wrapped together with this really cool musical score that they have going on as you walk in, and then as you're about to board. It's just all very cool. Probably my favorite music that's played in a queue line. And we're just talking about the queue line. Like I haven't even mentioned the ride itself, which is cool. It's dark in there, and you're twisting and turning, and it's a roller coaster that's indoors. But man, for me, what does it is that queue line.
Yeah, I always get, and I don't know why it is, but I always seem to get Star Tours and Space Mountain's queue line confused in my head. I don't know why.
Mhm.
But like as you're talking about it, I'm thinking, oh, is this the one that has C3PO in it? No, that's got to be over at Star Tours. Like I don't know. I just for some reason I get them mixed up. But um, Space Mountain's always one of those we got to ride Space Mountain type of rides while when we're there. But I did not include it on my list.
With me having been to Disneyland, I if we were including stuff from Disneyland, Space Mountain would be so much higher, because the Space Mountain in Disneyland is like head and shoulders over the one in Disney World, and so that's saying a lot. The queue line the queue line is even better in Disneyland. And it was cool because that was the first ride I went on, and I had no idea. I just thought it was just normal Space Mountain, and then I get on this ride, and it's just so cool. So yeah, if we were including Disneyland versions, oh man, it would be top 3 for me, honestly.
Oh wow.
It was that cool. And the ride itself is better because it's actually Star Wars themed. So there's that. But yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Number 8 is the People Mover.
Hey, yeah.
I love going on the People Mover. It was something that I didn't do at first. I was always like, whatever. But it's one of those that we have to do it every time we go. And just hearing that click, 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 click of the cars as you're, kind of going through it. It's a great chance to just relax for a little while and take in what you're seeing, look around the park. You get to see inside some things as you're going along. And you get to see, you might get a glimpse of Space Mountain as you're going through there, and you get a glimpse of, I don't know, Star Traders gift shop. And then they've got the half of the original Epcot model in there for you to check out. And I think you see inside a Buzz Lightyear at one point. It's just a wonderful ride. I love going on it, getting those few minutes just to sit and relax. You don't have to worry about, what is this ride gonna do to me type of thing. You just sit and relax. So yes, number 8 was People Mover for me.
Yeah, and that's so perfect. People Mover is definitely, so it's not on my top 10 list, but it's top 5 rides at Magic Kingdom for sure. The People Mover is so perfect because it like you said, you get on there and you can relax, and you don't worry about a ride happening in front of your face, but you kind of like you go into Space Mountain, you get a different view of a Space Mountain, you go into Buzz Lightyear. And so you're kind of able to it's like experiencing a ride without the stress.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love People Mover. So my number 8 is Dinosaur. I don't know why. It's kind of like this wacky, weird ride. And it's actually kind of gotten more of a following lately. But it used to be kind of like a hidden gem at Animal Kingdom, where like the line was barely ever very long. People weren't really talking about it because it wasn't Everest. And so for me, that's kind of what I always thought was cool. And the ride system is like probably one of the coolest things Disney's come up with. The fact that like it feels like everything's completely flat and it feels like you're going over logs and stuff.
Yes.
It's all very cool. And so I think and the queue line itself is also very cool. It kind of feels like you're walking into a museum. And I love museums. Museums are so cool. And so that's one thing that I really enjoyed too. And so I think like kind of like the whole idea behind Dinosaur and the fact that it was kind of like this hidden gem for a while in Animal Kingdom was something that I really got into. So that's why it's on my list, because it's kind of my hidden gem. Like not a lot of people like to talk about it, and I'm sure it's not on a lot of people's top 10 lists, but it's on mine because I enjoy it, and it's something that I'm kind of like a hipster this way with with liking Dinosaur. So
Yeah, I've always enjoyed it too. It's just, I don't know. It's always been one of those fun ones. You kind of get thrown around while you're on it, but it's fine. It's a good time. Seeker, Dr. Seeker is always fun. We're not gonna make it. We're not gonna make it. Yeah, we made it. So it's fun. I got to ride it back in the day when it was initially called Countdown to Extinction,
Yep.
and it confused the heck out of me when I went back, and I'm like, why isn't it Countdown to Extinction anymore? And you can still see some nods to that inside the queue line when you get in there. I'm sure you know, Mikhailo, that McDonald's was a sponsor initially, and the pipes in there, the red, yellow, and the white, they actually have the formulas for ketchup, mustard, and mayonnaise on those pipes.
That's something I think I've told my family and my brother and sister that every time we get on that ride. That's the one funny little factoid that people like to talk about on that ride.
Yeah, I think I remember going through there one time and being like, oh yeah, we need a snack or something. I'm like, oh, we can get some McDonald's fries over here. And they weren't there anymore. I was like, oh, this is weird. But yeah, good times. So that was number 8, Dinosaur, right?
Yep.
Number 9, Living with the Land.
Hey.
Did I hit one with you that you got on your list as well, or
no? That's again, that's an honorable mention.
Okay,
but the one that I have on here is pretty close. So keep going.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with Living with the Land, but I absolutely love that ride, and I always want to go on it. Just seeing the greenhouses, like I don't need the story, like the whole farming thing that you get with it. It's good. It makes sense to me. I don't have any problem with it, but I don't need that. I want to see the planting. I want to see the plants hanging from the ceiling. And then the fish, like all the hydroponics they got going on, and I'm trying to think of the term when you have fish feeding the food. I can't. It's a whole cycle thing that you do.
Symbiotic cycle.
It's like just to see all that science going on and knowing that I can go over to Sunshine Seasons or anywhere on property probably and get the food that they're growing there. And it's another one of those relaxing rides that you can just kick back and enjoy what you're seeing and not have to worry about which way I'm going to get thrown or am I going to make it, So it's a great one. And this year they added a Christmas overlay to it. And how cool was that? I loved watching those videos this time around, seeing some of the lights that they put in there at night to make it a little more festive. So
yeah, very cool. This is a ride definitely in my honorable mention, and it kind of harkens back to like super early Epcot, because Epcot was kind of like the 80s, and it kind of had a lot of it still kind of has that 80s vibe, which they're kind of going to be sweeping out a little bit with some of the updates and everything that's going on right now, but really haven't done too much to that ride. It still kind of has that real like 80s vibe to it, which I love. I loved all the original music, super 80s, and the kind of like the idea of it. It's very like simple, and I feel like it's a super underrated ride. So underrated that I think last time I went to Epcot, I actually used a fast pass for it. So, and it was just because um, for fast passes, like the system that they're using now, there really wasn't anything else that I wanted to go on. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna want to go on Living with the Land, so I might as well use a fast pass for it. So yeah, and I think I said this a couple podcasts ago, but it's something that like I just love those ride throughs because they're just so relaxing. Like if I want to relax and just like hang out, sometimes I'll just turn on that ride through and just and sit there and listen to it. So yeah, super underrated ride. Um and just like super 80s and really like that's kind of Epcot for me.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of the charm for it with me as well. I'm always into the history and the old stuff, so maybe that's part of it. But yeah, it's such a great ride, such a great ride.
So mine, not too similar to that ride, but it's still kind of like one of those rides where I feel like it's kind of underrated. Um, and I always make it a point to go on this ride, and that's Spaceship Earth. Um,
Yes.
I don't know why I'm super into Spaceship Earth. Like that's like one of my favorite rides at Epcot. Um, and I I used to like listen to all of the original spiels for Spaceship Earth. Judy Dench is doing it now. Walter Cronkite did it back in the day too. It's just like a whole bunch of other people have done this before.
Jeremy Irons, I think,
Jeremy
had done one.
Irons, he was a good
Yes.
one. But like I don't know, there's just something about it. It's in the Epcot golf ball. It's called Spaceship Earth. People like to call it the golf ball. But just I don't know. It's one of those rides. And again, it's got a lot of I mean, they keep updating it, but it still has that feel of like original Epcot. And like everything that came out originally with Epcot and the idea that they had for it. So I think that's kind of what I enjoy about it, and I don't know why. It's just like it's like another personal preference. It's another one that like I don't know. I really got into it, and I really enjoy a lot about it. And I think it's comes back from I really enjoy stuff like museums, and it kind of has that like vibe where it's like a ride through museum. And it's giving you a lot of entertainment, and I'm super into a lot of that. So
Yeah, when I last rode it, I think the big thing I really enjoyed was just that star field when you get to the top and it turns around and you for getting ready for the descent and you've got that big star field above you. Like you can't see anything about like it kind of blows my mind the way that they've made it look like you're looking into infinity or whatever.
yeah.
And it's just I don't know. It's a cool ride. I'll do it once in a while. My family doesn't really care for it, so when I'm with them, it's something that we might skip. But yeah. So my number 10, as I had mentioned, was Splash Mountain. So what have you got, Mikhailo?
So my number 10, and I put this on here because it's probably one of the most innovative rides that I've been on so far. And that is Smuggler's Run. It's basically a big old video game. And you kind of it's funny they mentioned that because you kind of get it's got the new queue line where you get into this one area and then you get put into teams and then you go and you do the ride. And so they kind of explain it to you that way, where it's like, oh, it's kind of a video simulator, and you have to react to certain things. But it really is like it's you sit there and you can easily get sucked into your own little area of like buttons you have to push and maneuvers that you have to do. But even if you, because I kind of did that, I wanted to get a good score. But even if you do that, even if you get sucked in, there's so much detail right in front of your face. And then if you just look to the front of the cockpit, it just looks like you're flying in the Millennium Falcon, and there's buttons flashing everywhere, and it's just all so cool. And then the fact that it takes you somewhere else, drops you off, and it looks like there's damage. Like when you get out of the it looks like you took damage. Like it's like they've thought of everything. It's just insane. And it's so low on my list because I've only ridden it once. The queue line is massive. Just like it's like you walk through an entire hangar at like a Star Wars hangar. The one thing I didn't like was I had to wait like 2 hours. Which it was, I mean, it was fine. It was right around when everything had opened anyways, so it was super popular. But just walking through that queue line was so cool. And I think the reason it's not so high on my list is I've only ridden it once, and I wasn't even the captain. So I feel like, and that's another thing, is that you can have different experiences. And that's another thing is you can have different experiences on this ride. And I'm guessing Captain is like the experience because you're up front and you're watching everything that's happening. So this is going to be a ride that I'm sure is going to quickly go up my top 10 list. And then with that, I'm even more excited to see what they have with Rise of the Resistance, because if this is the other ride, like this isn't even the main ride that they like, this isn't the main ride that they have at Batuu, like what is Rise of the Resistance going to be like? And I mean, people are already losing their minds about it. So and I know I'm super late into knowing what actually happens on Rise of the Resistance, but don't tell me, because I want to go experience it.
Yeah, I can't wait to experience both of those. I have not ventured into that or onto that planet, I guess I should say.
Mhm.
So yes, I see videos every once in a while, and I just look at my wife and go, I gotta go, I gotta get there. And yeah, we have so many things that we want to get done. Might be a little bit yet before I can get there. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's our top 10, huh?
Yeah.
So I know you've got a couple of honorable mentions. The one thing that I think needs to be mentioned is the safari.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't include it, but it's such a great ride. Like, just to be able to go see those animals in a quasi-natural environment, it's unbelievable what they're able to do in that space.
Yeah, it's I don't know, for me, I don't say it's a bad ride, and I totally agree that it's an amazing ride. I don't know, for me it kind of gets, maybe it's because I am just so I need to be stimulated all the time. But I don't know, for me it's kind of like I don't have to ride it every single time I go. And so I don't know, that's kind of why it wasn't on my list. I kind of understand all the amazing things that they're doing out there, but yeah.
Yeah. It, we wouldn't have it if it wasn't for another ride we should mention, which is Jungle Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason we have the Animal Kingdom is because of Jungle Cruise. That was kind of what we have in the Safari ride is what Walt wanted in Jungle Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you gotta mention those. Those are some great rides. So.
Oh yeah, I Jungle Cruise is on my honorable mention. A couple other ones from my honorable mention are Slinky Dog Dash, another new one, but I really enjoyed it. And it was the last Disney ride that I went on my last trip, so kind of holds a special place in my heart. Test Track, that's another one that we didn't mention that I love that ride. I loved the old version.
Yeah, me too.
The old version would have been on my top 10 list. The new version, not so much. Kali River Rapids, another very good ride. Another very cool queue line. You get too wet sometimes, and it's kind of short. And then Mine Train. I think we mentioned that too. So
Yeah, I think we briefly mentioned that one.
yeah.
So those are our top 10s. And we had a really good time in my house building my top 10. This is my own top 10. They, kind of helped me work through it. I would challenge all of you guys listening to actually put pen to paper and rank your top 10. Just making a list of the 10 is one thing, but rank your top 10. And then we would love to have you come and put it on Facebook. Share it with us. Let us tear it apart maybe, or just agree with you, because this is fun. Building a top 10 can be so much fun. So to give you one more example, my daughter gave us her top 5, and she's going to give us that right now. All right, so now we're going to hear from Mia about her top 5. So, Mia, how old are you?
7.
All right, and how many times have you been to Disney World?
Twice.
All right. So, your best ride would be?
Figment.
And what do you like about Figment?
The song that they sing.
The song? And this is Journey to Imagination, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to sing some of the song for us?
No thanks.
Okay.
But I love the song.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How about your number 2? What do you like after Figment?
Splash Mountain.
Splash Mountain? What part of Splash Mountain do you like?
The big drop when you can get wet in your clothes. It's so fun.
Yeah, you get wet in your clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to walk around with wet clothes.
Yeah, but last time I did that, I was running, so it dried pretty quick.
Yeah. So what's number 3?
Small World. I like that because I love the song and I love how we go in the boat. And I like putting my hand in the water going...
All hands and feet stay inside the boat.
It's quick.
Yeah. And the dolls, you like the dolls?
Yeah, they're really fun.
Okay, what's number 4?
Winnie the Pooh ride.
The Winnie the Pooh ride? The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
You're silly, Dad.
And what do you like about that one?
How Tigger pops out like that.
Okay, I like that part too. What else? Anything else?
Number 5?
Nope. Of the ride of Pooh.
No, that's it.
You know what I like about Pooh?
What?
When you're kind of like Tigger and you start bouncing around on the ride.
Yeah.
I like that part.
Okay, so number 5 is Frozen Ever After.
Okay. So, what do you like about that ride?
It was really funny when we reached the part where Oaken says, "Yoo-hoo!"
And that's in the queue line, right? When you're waiting. Is there anything about the actual ride that you like?
I like Olaf.
Olaf?
Yeah, and I like the big monster that we saw up there.
Do you remember his name? Marshmallow.
Oh yeah, Marshmallow.
Yeah. So, I do have to ask, from a kid that goes around the house singing Into the Unknown all the time.
Nope, never mind. Never mind.
Okay. It's hard to pick, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
And rank them all out. I think you got a pretty good list there. Thanks for joining us on the show. Anything else you want to include while you're here?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Cool. Yeah, it's cool to see other people's lists and all of the other things that she came up with that weren't even on our lists.
Yeah, it's really fun to see someone's of a different age and their point of view, how it's completely different from ours.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm looking for from other people on Facebook. Let's see these top 10s. I want to see what you guys got.
Cool. So that is all we have for you guys today on Miles from Main Street. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We want to hear what you guys think of our lists. If they're completely wrong, we want to see your guys' lists, and we will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please rate us on iTunes and subscribe. Email us at milesfrommainstreetpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, and visit us on Facebook under Miles from Main Street. We'll be bringing more to you weekly and look forward to talking to you then.
Until next week, remember,
some live close,
but most of us don't.
So let's talk about it.